Hello there and welcome to the live Wednesday podcast on the This Is Ibrox channel. As always, I'm joined by two fantastic guests. Firstly, JB, it's been a while since you've been on, my man. How are you?
Yeah, first time this season, I think. So, can't wait to get stuck into it. And I think when we finished up last year, I remember thinking, right, just get through to the start of next season. Life will be good again. And here we are. So, see how we go.
Yeah, it was a very sobering night last night for a lot of Rangers supporters. And Ian, how are you after that last night as well?
I'm fine. Still a little pissed off at the whole situation yesterday about the decisions, the match, all of the above kind of thing. But I'm sure we'll get stuck right into all that.
Well, that's exactly. There's quite a lot of talking points from the fallout of last night. We'll get through as many as we can. We'll discuss the game itself, whether or not Cherney should have started that awful Jefte sending off. Tom Lawrence featuring so heavily this season as well. I think there's a discussion worth having around that. Is there a lack of leadership in the team? Because I certainly felt that last night, that especially going down to 10 men, there was no leaders on that pitch. That's a discussion I'm sure we'll get into. Some of the players as well around the team. Danilo, are we ever going to see him? Igaman, are we ever going to see him? Hadji, Cantwell, a bit of a discussion to have around them. Is a lack of a CEO and DOF, is that having an effect at the football club? And how will last night affect us going forward in terms of our ability to sign players? Firstly, JB, as it's been a while since you've been on, just your overall thoughts on last night as a whole.
Yeah, thanks for that opportunity to shine. Appreciate it. I think just from start to finish, I think you've got to take us all the way back to pre-season. We've kind of been clinging on to any kind of hope that things will just eventually come good. So we look at certain performances. They take Conor Barron, for example, been fantastic. So we're latching on to the fact that, right, he's okay. And we move on to the next thing. We go through the next friendly. The league season starts. We get Hearts out the way. We then obviously go and have a good result away. We think, right, this is it. The corner's been turned. And then Motherwell, got over the line. And last night, it was just a case of, right, that kind of just summed the season up so far. I think it's just the frustration, just again, where teams like that. Now, don't get me wrong. I think everyone was a bit put off by the fact that they'd done so well in the first game, in the first qualifying round. So I think everyone went into it thinking these are going to be really good, and in reality, they weren't. They weren't a great side. If that was the Rangers European teams of the last 4 or 5 years, I'd like to think we'd have come through them comfortably. So to come out of it in the position that we've come out is really disappointing. The night itself, I think, I know we'll probably go into a bit more depth in terms of individuals, but it just felt very flat. I mean, you've only got to look at the crowd in terms of how much the crowd were up for it. One thing you can't question the Rangers fans is how supportive we've been throughout the years. Some of the shite we've had to deal with, both on and off the pitch, yet we kept coming. It just feels as if that last night I think it's brought a lot of things to the head for a lot of the fans, and it was almost a case of enough's enough now. So I think they've got a massive corner they need to turn. I think I feel as low as I did, and I've said that on a few pods, around when I walked out to that Aris game last season, and you thought, what have we got here? Which of these players do we actually have an emotional connection to, and would we be disappointed if they ended up staying? If they ended up leaving? And you look at the 2s and 3s, as opposed to if you think about like the 55 season, or even when Gerrard was trying to build something, or even under Gio, you almost had 5 or 6 players. You go, right, keep them, and then we make all the things better. I genuinely think you're looking at 9s, 10s, 11s for the squad. So yeah, overall last night's really disappointing. The sending off absolutely killed us. But again, I think years gone by, I think we'd have coped better with that situation. But last night it just didn't feel like we were in the wrong movie again, didn't it? So yeah, utterly disappointing.
Yeah, that's a great way of saying it. It was absolutely the wrong movie yet again with Rangers. Ian, you were at that game last night. Again, just a sort of your general thoughts on being there. And there was an interesting comment here from Scott B. He said the Hampden effect didn't help.
Yeah, it's fact. I saw a few people saying Twitter and stuff, if that game's at Ibrox, I think we win that. And that sounds like a bit of a get out completely, because I don't think we played well at all last night. But the crowd at Ibrox, as we've seen over the years, just doesn't let the team lose at European games. It's got that special feeling about it. The whole sort of club is in a bit of a mess just now, and that's probably the biggest factor for me, the whole Ibrox situation. As for the game itself, I saw a few people saying that we were in control and we were fine up until the red card. I don't really agree, to be honest. I thought it was pretty poor. It was two poor sides, if I'm being honest. I don't think Kyiv are going to go anywhere near the stage I've battled here in this next round. So I think that was a big missed opportunity overall. Probably the worst team to beat us in Europe over the years. The odd result here or there. But really poor. You do need to mention the red card, and again, is that a cop out, sort of? But the red card is a joke. Just no other way of putting that. Never read. But as for the general play, that's what sort of annoyed me so much. I mean, Kyiv aren't a terrible team, maybe, but we should be peppering shots in that goal. We should be getting corner after corner, chance after chance, and we didn't. Even when it was 11 men against 11, there was just nobody that turned up. You mentioned there's no leaders on the pitch. I think that's very true. There's no one sort of galvanising the team. There's no one getting them going. No one just putting their foot in the ball for a little bit and dominating possession and grinding teams down. And it's just, JB said it, we're kind of sick of it here at this point. That's another season where the Champions League money has been gambled with the squads. I know there's a lot of comments already about the board and how they've let us down. It's fact, to be honest. It's too big a game. Probably the biggest game of our season there, financially anyway. There's no other game that was going to get us the results that yes, it's only 5 million, but it's what that could have obviously led to, and it's now just gone. And it's one that our rivals have already got. They've banked it. They've started spending it now. So, yeah, not to go too doom and gloom within the first, 7 minutes here, but that's just how we're all feeling, isn't it?
Listen, it seems to be the trend of this season already, and I've only done about 6 podcasts so far, and other than the words Conor Barron, I don't think there's been much positivity to talk about. But JB, we'll come to you here in this next point. Iain touched on it. It's the big point of the game, and I just would like to get your thoughts on, how much you think that did affect Rangers. It's obviously comes around the 50-minute mark where Jefte was sent off for a second yellow. Clement after the game said, in the end, it's killed the dream of a dressing room. It's killed the dream of more than 50,000 fans, and you expect a better level in decision making. But this for me is one of the worst decisions that I have seen in my more than 30 years of football, especially at this level. What did you make of that last night?
Yeah, well, Clement's quote, he also said he was going to fix the injuries, but how's that working out? But yeah, in terms of the sending off itself, I thought the first one was harsh. It was kind of one of them ones that you get away with just a warning, right? Calm down. It was obviously first half, and you see Jefte kind of signalling just be first challenge, be first attempt. Probably a little bit naive at his level. He's got to understand that these throw themselves about like there's no tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to be bit more streetwise in that situation. I try and think what type of players would we have. It'd probably be your Cantwells, your Dessers that would have rolled round in that type of similar situation. And we get frustrated as fans, but it's part of the modern game, especially as you go abroad. You wouldn't expect it from Ukrainians. I don't know if that's a bit of a generalisation there. Do you know what I mean? In terms of you get the impression that they're hard and the battlers and that, but they know how to play the game. Do you know what I mean? So I thought the first one was very harsh, and then the second one was. I've seen a couple of people kind of blaming Jefte, saying he shouldn't have jumped in. But if he doesn't jump in, then we're all having to go at him for not being committed and stuff. I thought he couldn't have gone up any cleaner, physically any cleaner. If he was, it's not very often you see people jump that straight. I think that's one thing we did learn. He's got a good decent leap on him, which I think might have to come in handy throughout the season. But it was just ridiculous. It was just one of them where you just shake your head and you go, when you looks down, you looks down. And I think for them not to have it, I think I read earlier, they didn't have one yellow card over the 290 minutes. It's just wild. And
do you think that
you just wonder,
the red card killed the game for Rangers? Do you think
Yeah,
red card
definitely.
killed the game?
It killed it, and I think it just kind of it knocked the momentum out of us completely. What little momentum we did have, it kind of just went. It kind of reminded me a little bit when Malmo went down to 10 men. I don't know, at Ibrox, or even though it was the other way, everyone just kind of went, "It's done." Do you know what I mean? It's like in the other fact, in the way that we didn't know how to react to it, and even the crowd normally, because we've been used to going down to 10 men throughout the years, especially in Europe, sometimes that galvanises the fans and go, right, it's us v them, we're going to have to get it. But I think, again, to Ian's point, the fact that we didn't have that Ibrox factor, it was just a case of, right, there's another thing that hasn't gone for us. So, yeah, let's just see how it pans out. I mean, fair play to the players for cracking on, do you know what I mean? Because as much as they weren't a great side, they were good in possession. They weren't threatening. But if you go through, they probably got a half decent squad. I mean, most of them were in that Ukraine squad that went to the Euros. Do you know what I mean? So anyone that's playing at the Euros, they're going to have something about them. They might be top level, top draw, but I still don't think we handled that situation well, though. I mean, Tom Lawrence, we're going to get to Tom Lawrence later in the pod, but you can't have people like that on the pitch when you've got 10 men. You need to be aggressive. You need to be sharp. You need to be covering ground. You need to dig it out. And Tom Lawrence, I think he's got plenty of ability there, but he's not someone that's going to dig a game out for you. And yeah, definitely disappointed there.
This was going to be sorry to jump in, but this was going to be my kind of main point of this. Like, it's common practice in football for a team to get a red card, right? Happens every few games. It doesn't then mean you've lost. Whereas from the moment we get 10, I just knew we'd lost. Just the way we were set up. Obviously, I'm not going to blame all this on Tom Lawrence, but just the idea that he was still on. You've got like Stelling on the bench, and then from the other flip of that, you've got Dessers, who just he doesn't hold the ball up. That's not what he does. He's a flick off and lay off kind of guy, and it just wasn't working. But you could tell this from like the 60th minute onwards, and this is what. Again, I'm going early here, but this is why Clement does stress me quite a lot, because if we can all see it, and there's 40, I don't know if there was even 40,000 there last night, but if there's 40,000-ish, and everyone on Twitter and everyone here and there can see these same problems and see this exact scenario playing out, why can't he? Like, he knows better than me, and I'm not going to go down that route again, because he's a manager. He lives and dies by his decisions, so he's not doing it for a laugh. This is what he thinks is right, but you could see Diomande in the left wasn't working, and as soon as Stelling came on in the left, that wasn't working. I mean, Stelling is built for that kind of situation. He could have been in the centre of that park, tackling, win the ball back, carrying it a little bit, and then you just bring on some pace up front just for a counter, just so we can lump the ball at the pitch and let Reiter Matondo go. And we just gave the ball away and got deeper and deeper and deeper. And I mean, my son is 8, so he doesn't read football very well, but he said they're going to score. And if an 8-year-old can sit and realise that they're about to score, there's a massive alarm bell in there. We're just so easy to play against with 11 men that 10 men it's not a contest.
And I think if you jump back to the first game of the season against Hearts, a lot of people said it was what we expected. And that, unfortunately, under Clement since the second half of last season and then going into the start of the season, we're all expecting, there's not many games we're walking away with and we go, didn't see that coming. Do you know what I mean? You could name them on one hand. Betis away, no, none of us seen that coming. Benfica away, none of us seen that coming. But the general theme is we kind of know everything that's going to happen. We have this hope that we're going to do things differently. But last night, it just wasn't a night for Tom Lawrence. Tom Lawrence comes on in that game if you are needing a goal and you need a little bit of magic because there's been no spark. We needed to see that first 60 minutes out sensibly. You might argue, you know what, we did. You know what I mean? It was 0-0. The game was still there to go for. But you're looking at the side to go, right, who can come on and kind of give us that spark? As soon as you bring Cherney on at half time, that's your spark gone. And it all just links back to we weren't ready. We weren't ready for the start of the season, and we weren't ready for European football. And I think it's a really poor management from the club. And we could go on all day in terms of the management of the club and the way things are being ran. But we just weren't ready for it, and I think that's the most disappointing thing for me. Whether we're going to be good enough to beat them over a full season, then in my eyes, if you go through, if you play the old game of comparing the two 11s, not one of our players gets in their 11, not one. And people might say, oh, but what about Greg Taylor? Greg Taylor will play 35, 40 games this season and probably chip in with a handful of assists and a handful of goals. Our fullbacks aren't going to do that. And that's me picking on probably their worst player in their eyes. So we just haven't. We've really misread the room, I think, going into the start of the season. I think that, I don't know whether it's been an arrogance. So we maybe thought, you know what, we've got enough there. We'll just see how much. Like if we get through the first Champions League qualifier and there's 5 million, we should have built a team here that was going to be pushing them all the way, as far as we could have pushed them. And we're not even doing that. They're able to bring in second-rate strikers, and they don't even need to run away from us anymore. We're running away from them in terms of we've got worse. They haven't got any better. We've got worse, and that's unforgivable, I think.
Yeah, listen, it's really hard to disagree with what either of you have said, and just because there's been so much negativity, I will just try and bring up the positivity by just saying Connor Barron, and then we'll move on to the next point there again. But yeah, look, listen, I'll come to you here, Ian, in the next bit here, because there was so much stuff that we talked about in there. But Vaclav Cerny, that was certainly the debate in the radio when I was driving home. It was really interesting. It was two ex-professionals saying, "Yep, we should have taken the risk, taken the gamble. If you're a professional football player, you want to play him. Should he have started last night?"
100,000 million% yes. He's our best player from what we've seen in the last few games. At least he's the one that's going to do something, whether it's an assist or a goal. I don't understand it. Like I get the point that he's not fully fit. That's fine. But he's had a good few weeks here now. We've been managing him. He's only started one game, and even at that, he came off after 55 minutes on Saturday. I want to say it wasn't far away from that anyway. So he's hardly been playing 90 minutes after 90 minutes here. And the point of putting him on at half time, you're then risking a full second half plus possibly extra time, which is the way that game was going for me anyway. So that's longer than the hour. And you're then not managing it. You're just trying to deal with what's there and how long he's got in him, kind of thing. So for me, he should be starting. If you get 55, 60 minutes out of him a game and he's exhausted, fair enough. You take him off. You go from there. If you've not cracked them open by that point, fair enough. But I touched on it a moment ago. That was the most important game of our season financially this year. Yes, we'll have bigger games and on paper, bigger ties and bigger must-win kind of events going on. But in terms of pure financially, which is where we're all struggling so much, it's why we're not getting new bodies in. It's why we have to move players on. It's again links back to that Ibrox disaster that we've had going on in terms of the stadium and whatnot. It's just symbolic of what's going on at this team just now, that I saw that starting lineup and straight away thought, no, why? And that's what I talked about before. It's what's stressing us. Come on, every starting lineup so far this season I've had concerns about, and those concerns have then manifested on the pitch. So it's not just me saying it. It's every time you see the starting lineup coming out, you look on Twitter, all the comments are the same thing. All of us are saying the same thing. Why this happened? What's going on there? And again, you do need to caveat it a little bit with the fact that McCausland, I wouldn't say he was good, to be honest. I thought he was fine. He was involved, had a couple of chances here and there, but he's not going to win you a game. Like, he's not going to score you. He's not going to assist. He's very much on to just try and tire out the other team. Obviously, then to bring Cherney on, but when the red card comes on, as we've touched on, the game's gone. Like, Cherney can't affect the game the same way. And yes, he had one or two chances, but if he's starting that game, he's probably getting 3, 4, 5 chances. And a guy with his ability isn't going to miss that many chances. So, yeah, major red flag for me that was. I know Clement's listening to his physios and trying to go down that route, which I do think we've neglected a lot over the years. But it's a massive game for us. The more annoying thing for me as well is the fact that we've got St Johnstone in the Cup at the weekend. That's a game to rotate players and bring in Matondo, Wright, Dowell, etc. You could say to Cherney, like, give us all you've got for an hour, try and push to 70 minutes, and you've got a week off, basically. You can be super low intensity training for a week, got all the rest you have to then go again when the next qualifier would come around. But now we'll probably see him start St Johnstone at the weekend, and what's the point of that? So no, that's my major frustration, is that team selection on that right wing, effectively.
Yeah, I totally agree. Listen, there's a few comments coming here. CGM55 says, yes, Cherney should have started. RSC72 said, if Cherney had started and got injured or it was 0-0 after 60 minutes and he came off, we would have moaned as well. No one able to come off the bench and do something. Cherney starting, yes. McCausland, not so good. Gary Patterson here says, Cherney's know it. And CGM55, Cherney should have started. That's not a huge issue. Not starting Sterling is. It's just what I cannot understand is how we have basically managed Tav and Ridvan for the 4 pre-season games, both of them injured, limited minutes, and then we start the season and they've not had a break. But with Cherney, if you're able to play the second half of football, you should be able to play the first half of a game of football. I don't see the difference in it. And for me, you go out, try and get as many goals as you can, and not hang on in there, but surely that was the time to do it, was to meet that team head on and to go at it, because I think that's the one thing we can all agree on from last night, is that team were there for the taking. And a comment was in earlier on, I don't know why you wouldn't start with your starting 11. Obviously, Jefte came off, and there was a bit of movement about the team here. JB, Diomande seemed to go on to the left, which was a bit perplexed about. Lawrence sitting a bit deeper. But let's talk about Tom Lawrence, seeing as we've already had a bit of a discussion about him. But the manager seems insistent that he is the man for that 10 position at the moment. Do you agree with him on that?
No, I think Tom Lawrence, where he is at the moment, would be a fantastic impact sub. You put him on there to do a job. You put him on there when opposition's tired. You put him on there when you need a spark. I said earlier, someone when you need a spark, someone when teams are sitting deep, then he'll give you that extra option, especially domestically. My concern is in terms of the way we're utilising Lawrence, is we're setting up the same against Motherwell in a league game at home, or home fixture, a really poor Motherwell team, but we're also going with the same formation and the same approach against Dynamo Kyiv in a European game. I mean, don't get me wrong, managers have philosophies, and I get that. Great, well done you guys. But surely there's got to be horses for courses in situations, and it's almost as if he's got this template now, and that template's not moving. And I remember when he first come in his first press conference, he was like, and from what I'd heard when he was at Bruges, some weeks he'd play a 3 and some weeks he'd play a 4, depending on the opposition. He'd move things about, and we're going to be quite surprised, and we're going to have a proper guy who reacts to the situation, because he's been through it as a player at a decent level. I'm just not seeing it. I'm just seeing the same template, and it's almost a case of this has to work. Now, I'm sure we've got a lot of clever guys who follow the club, and we're quite lucky with some of the guys that we've got within our group as well, in terms of give us maybe things from a different angle that maybe obviously your business as usual fan kind of doesn't appreciate. But I think in the whole, Lawrence is a 10. Lawrence never played a 10 when he was at Derby. He never played for 10 when he was at Wales, Man United, Leicester. He was always coming off the left. John Lundstrom was never a central midfielder. He always came in off the right. But for some reason, we want to try and put these players into positions that, you know what, they're not very good at. And I just, you could go on all day, couldn't you? I mean, the worrying thing is our probably best 2 number 10s, but probably aren't going to play for us again. And that's the worry. I mean, I know certain players get better when they're not in the team, and I get that. But I just think if you look at the season so far and where we've been, I'm not having that Cantwell or Hadji wouldn't have delivered as good, if not better, numbers than what Lawrence has delivered in that role. And you could probably go the same for 2 or 3 of them. The way, and again, without going off in too much of a tangent, with like the likes of Cantwell, punish Cantwell by having him on the bench and say, right, I'll use you when I need you, as opposed to you thinking that you're centre of the show. We are not good enough to have players on 25 grand a week, not even getting a game for the B team. We're not that good. I mean, that might come as a bit of a thing, and people are saying he doesn't want to play for us. No, he doesn't. By the sounds of it, he doesn't want to play for that particular manager. But surely the manager's got to handle that situation better than the way it's being handled now. And I think there's just been a few things like that give me the fear. Now, listen, as you touched on earlier, we don't want to be super negative, and we don't want to go, this isn't like a sack the manager thing. I think it is just it's a perfect storm of frustration, I think, coming out in pretty much everyone and everything. So if there's a positive there for us to grab onto, I think we'll definitely grab it with both hands and we'll run with it, because I think that's what we've done all season and pre-season. I just think we need to... he's going to have to freshen it up. He's going to have to come up with a couple of different solutions. And I actually think the fans would run with him if that was the case. If we've seen things a little bit different, if we've seen Jefte starting high on the left, if we've seen Kieran Dowell maybe having a go in the 10, and you go, you know what, he's tried Lawrence, he's tried Dowell, he's tried this, that, the other, but he's not trying anything, he's just doing the same thing, and we're seeing the same results, which is insanity. So, yeah, that's my view on Tom Lawrence.
Yeah, listen, I think you've hit the nail on the absolute head with that there, and that we are not reacting to the certain negativity. That it is just the same, that even though that we have options, there are players on the bench. Like, I mean, last night I was a bit perplexed as to why Ben Davies came on at left back rather than Robbie Fraser, who's been pretty good, the guy we've just got in and signed in a new deal. But yeah, that's exactly it. We're not seeing changes. See, at the weekend against St Johnstone, if you saw a Dowell, I think most people could say, listen, I can see why you're playing. Yeah, I think Kieran Dowell was the answer in a number 10. Absolutely not. But just something just to make it a bit different. I'll come to you here on this. What did you make of, and I'll maybe ask it in a bit more of a general question. You can include Tom Lawrence in that as well, if you like, in your answer, because that makes it even more perplexing that Diomande was put out on that left-hand side, given that, as JB's just said, that Lawrence traditionally comes in from the left. But do you think we're not playing to some of our players' strengths at the moment in terms of the positions that they're playing in? I look at your Diomandes and that. I look at your Lawrences and stuff like that. Even the players round about to help Dessers up front, because that was something that was doing my nut in last night, was he kept holding up. He kept looking for a runner to play it onto, which is maybe what the number 10 should be doing. But listen, I'll compress it a bit. Do you think that we are playing players in their best positions?
I would probably say no, and I'm going to echo a lot of what John touched on. I think it was it Sunday night pod he was on with Craig, and he mentioned how Diomande could be a really good player for us, and he's shown glimpses of that here and there, not consistently, nowhere near that. He's kind of flattered to deceive in some ways, but I think it's the formation that's doing him a lot of damage with this, because he's wanting to burst into that attacking play and get involved and maybe link him with Dessers or the wingers a little bit more. But Tom Lawrence is often standing where he wants to be because he's the 10, which makes sense. Lawrence isn't necessarily in the wrong place, but they're not complementing each other very well. I don't see a great link up between Lawrence and Dessers. You see the odd little fancy flicker pass there, but it never leads to a good goal scoring chance. And likewise, the wingers, I mean, let's call it how it is. We're playing a right winger last night from the start who none of us think can score or assist goals. And we're playing a left winger who's really a left back. So there's a problem there straight away. And you look at the options off the bench there in terms of Wright, Matondo, like no one's going to get excited to see them playing. So Clement's hands are tied a little bit, but it all just links back to the fact that we're playing players in positions in a formation that isn't working. It's not worked all season. It was hopeless in pre-season. It's not created enough chances that a Rangers team should be creating. And you just have to think, why are we seeing it time after time after time? Like you touched on, I mean, I don't necessarily want to see Dowell starting games, to be honest, but if St Johnstone at the weekend you saw like a Bailey Rice come in and sit behind Diomande and Barron, that's what I'd be sitting campaigning for. Like, I have no idea if he's ready. I don't know if he's just hopeless in training or just not mentally ready for like adult men football, but I just want to see at this point. I want to see something fresh. I want to see Archie Stevens getting a shot in the wing. I want to see Lovelace reintroduced. I know he's just back for injury, but we're all kind of writing this season off already. Why not put some faith in these youngsters? He touched on Fraser at left back. Why not? Like, he was fine last season. He was doing well. Don't remember any major mistake that he made. I mean, don't you know, these guys could come into a team, make a couple of errors, and you get some comments about them. But I feel like the fan base would just welcome that bit of freshness, because we were all calling out for a rebuild. We all wanted like Goldson's, Tav, Lundstrom, Barisic gone. One or two of those, that crop is still here. At least just give us a fresh thing to watch, because it's turgid at the moment. It's not repeat myself a little bit, but it's not making chances, it's not stopping goals, it's not even grinding out wins other than the Motherwell game. That was the first win of the season, including all competitions. I know there was the stat banded about last night about, was it 7 wins in 19 or something about that in the last competitive games? That's hopeless for Rangers. That is hopeless considering the teams that we've played in that run. So just give us something fresh. To go back to the original question, Lawrence wasn't the answer last season. He's certainly not the answer now. And if you offer me a Cantwell or a Hadji, I'd take them all day in that position. I mean, Lawrence's role in this team, as JB touched on, should be coming on the last 15, 20 minutes, try to hit a long-range shot, try to create a chance. He'd done it perfectly against Kilmarnock last season. If you remember, right at the end of the season, was it the 4-0 win, I want to say? He came on and scored that absolute belter of a goal because he's got space to work out. He can have a shot. He is the one player in this team who can hit a long-range shot well. So that's kind of built for him. He's not your pressing and high intensity and linking the play kind of guy. So it just means there's a total disconnect between the midfield and the attack. And it's why Dessers was getting pelters last night, because you said it yourself, he was doing these little layoffs, doing these little touches, which looked quite pretty. We're all right. But Lawrence hasn't got that little burst of pace to get there. So the ball just broke down, they would come again. Up there, break down, come again. Just repeat. Again, I'm going back to my original point. We're all watching the same thing happening time and time again. So just give us something different.
Yeah, but that's exactly it. We're not asking for much. Just a slight change, and that it might be a bit better. Albert's 11 legend here says statement released regarding old firm allocations. I've just seen that. That's something we'll definitely come to at the end of the podcast as well. But a couple of things here. But before we move on, JB, I just want to ask you, because the comments here asked the question, and is there a lack of leadership within this Rangers team at the minute? Lack of leadership, lack of quality. And Sobo here says, I still feel the loser mentality is still there with players like Tav and Lawrence hanging about. Last night, after we went down to 10 men, I touched on it earlier, I did not see anybody grabbing that game by the scruff of the neck. There's some names I've written down here: Tav, Butland, Suter, Diomande, because he's been a bit more vocal this season, but there was nothing from any of them on the pitch. Nobody heads up, let's go. Do you think there was a lack of leadership on that pitch last night?
Yeah, funny enough, I was thinking about this when you put the header up in terms of who are the, I hate the phrase leadership group. I've never heard of another club who's ever had one of these leadership groups, but we seem to be obsessed with them. I think it was I don't know if it was a Gerrard thing, but that leadership group probably consists of something like Butland, who I think we all agree speaks really well, and you get the impression that he's really good behind the scenes. Tav, we know Tav's not a Richard Gough or a Terry Butcher type of leader. By all accounts, he's probably everybody's pal behind the scenes, so he's probably a modern day captain. Kevin De Bruyne isn't a Richard Gough, but you know what? He's got plenty of ability, and he probably leads by example, and he's probably super fit, and people probably look at him. I think where Tav potentially will really struggle now is he's always appeared to me he's probably been one of the fittest in the team. He's always been sustainable. He's almost been, I get the impression he used to be, he didn't miss many games, and I get the impression him and Goldson didn't miss many training sessions. He's done. Do you know what I mean? I think the reason why he's still with us is because he wouldn't pass a medical. If he leaves us, there's obviously an underlying challenge there that he just can't shake off. This year, I think, was the first year he didn't go on any of his individual training camps like we've seen like Ryan Jack and Declan Rice run. You tend to see that. I think he went to the Maldives, which is, by all accounts, was lovely. And I think he went to a Rangers supporter club while he was there, and he went there with the family. And I don't begrudge him that at all, because I think he's been a fantastic servant. But again, if you're looking at him as a leader on the pitch, and you've got all these new boys coming in there looking at him and going, he's not even fit. Do you know what I mean? And he doesn't look fit on the pitch. He got roasted last night 4 or 5 times by a guy with no pace. I mean, my dad's already having sleepless nights. He's like, if Tav's still there when we come up against Maeda, it's going to be an absolute car crash. Do you know what I mean? Because we just know what's going to come. And back to that point me and Ian have said a couple of times, the predictability of stuff that we're seeing is just repeating itself. I think Proper will turn out to be a good leader. I think I've got good vibes about him.
Agreed.
Souther was a leader at heart, but he seems a shadow of that guy. I remember watching him. It was we were playing in the cup final, or certainly a couple of appearances against us, and I thought, wow, he's on it. He's all over it. He talks. He's a warrior. Just don't see it anymore. Don't know whether that's the weight of the shirt. Balogun, I imagine, is a good leader behind the scenes. I bet he seems like a really cracking guy, and I reckon he'd add a lot of value, but not available in a match day squad, so not much value to us there. Conor Barron's probably our biggest leader in terms of the pitch, and he's our bravest player, which is absolutely mental that a guy that couldn't get a game for Aberdeen last year, and that probably tells you how far we've come in such a short space of time, that our leader is a lad that couldn't get a game for Aberdeen, a minnow of football. Do you know what I mean? So it's bad. And Diamandi, I think, will eventually. Will stand up. Diamandi, I think, will grow into being a good leader. But will he grow into a leader in this current Rangers team? I don't know, because I think the energy and that smile will quite quickly. Because one thing we like about him is he appears to be giving it his all. But he's going to get to a point where he's chasing shadows, because not everybody else is doing it. The people in front of him aren't doing it. And so there's going to come to a point where he'll probably get lazy, because he's going to get to a point where he's going to go, I'm not running past you to make tackles. And I just don't think we're getting the most out of him. I think it was, you said it before, Ian, I think John said it on one of the pods, over the weekend, and just said, we're not getting the most out of him. And again, I don't think you'll see, he can't give lead. I don't think you expect him to be a leader if he's not playing well. He strikes me as the type that would play the game with a smile on his face. All the clips and videos you've seen of him, and his leaving video from when he come over, you kind of seen this guy that seemed to love to play football. We're slowly but surely grinding that out of him. And
it's the Rangers way.
It's petrifying, because one thing the Rangers fans love, we love players that go out there and give it 110%. There's been a lot of really poor players over the years that have won titles that weren't great footballers, but you know what? We knew that they were going to give it their all as soon as they crossed that white line, and we need to get a few of them. I know there's a snobbery of the likes of Lewis Ferguson, Kenny McLean, these type of guys who are Rangers fans who will probably run through a brick wall to play for Rangers, and we maybe just need to take a step back and go, right, where are we? We need to maybe get a little bit nastier quite quickly, because there's no nastiness in that team.
Yeah, to totally agree. If we could clone Terry Hurlock and stick him right in the centre of that midfield, that would be unbelievable. But I don't know if we're going to do that. Dujon Sterling for me is the man to go into that centre midfield when he's fit. But if he's fit, we'll see. There was
where was Sterling for their first goal yesterday? Do you know what I mean? That was his chance to show that he's that guy. I'm not going to let him just walk past me. I mean, Tom Lawrence put a half-hearted, well, it wasn't even a half-hearted attempt. He seemed to jump out the way of the ball, but that's where I want Sterling to be lifting him on the edge of the box. But again, can't be too critical on the kid and the fact that he hasn't had much match sharpness. He probably thought he was going to be our number one right back up until 6 weeks ago. I think we all did. So again, I don't want to weigh in on him because he is one of the few positives that I think that we've got kicking around the squad.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But I said the point for me is just I cannot believe the amount of players that we have in that team who were captains at clubs that we bought them from. Looking at your Tom Lawrence's, Ben Davies was a captain at Preston North End, Suter, Butland, Tav, Diamandi was a captain at Northland, and nobody just seemed to want to, grab the team by the neck and just go forward with it. Look, I'll move on here. Ian, the next point here is Danilo. What is going on with Danilo? I see at games when I'm sitting next to Craig, I'm the guy that's always going, oh, listen, that's the subs. I can see the subs coming in. Look, it's, Dujon Sterling's coming on, or it's so-and-so coming on. I've always got a wee eye on that. I've not seen Danilo even warm up once yet this whole season. He's not done any running at the side of the pitch. Do you think he's fit in after what the manager said in his press conference last night about him?
Yeah, I think the limping video is taken way out of context because that's how he walks. It's a weird swagger thing he's doing. So we've saw there's many videos that he walks like that. So I'm not bothered by that. I'm going to try and sidestep way beyond that. But I'm very similar to you. I like looking like off the pitch a lot and seeing what's going on, who's doing what, especially with injuries that we always get, seeing who looks fit. But I did watch Danilo a lot last night because he was coming out a couple of times to do little like group sessions at the side, and he was doing his like high knees and heel kicks at the back and all that stuff. So he looked fine, and especially at half time, he was on the pitch just knocking the ball about with Matondo, and he looked absolutely fine. He was doing like these step overs, and his knees were basically doing this, so he looked absolutely fine to me. So there was no like gingerly walking about. It wasn't looking as if he was like sore or in pain in any way. He looked like he wanted on the pitch just from that little sort of smashing the ball into the back of the net kind of thing. And I just don't get it. I do not get it, because he did feature a very little bit in pre-season, didn't he? He played like 10-15 minutes at Birmingham. I think he done the same out in Holland when we were there. So how can you go from being okay to feature a little bit to not featuring 4 games now when you've been on the bench and Dessers have been absolutely ran into the ground? So I don't. Dessers a funny one for me in this one last night, because he obviously has his goal at the crowd and everyone kind of bites back at him, which I think he was poor last night and he should have been holding the ball up more. Yeah. That's a whole different argument, but we are absolutely taking him to the well at this point. Like, he's surely exhausted. Why not just throw Danilo in? Especially that the humorous thing is that when we go 1-0 down and Proper goes up front, I know he's a big lad, he's going to win headers, that's fine, but if the ball lands at his feet, I don't fancy him to curl into the top corner. Like, just put Danilo on to stand up there. Doesn't have to run. Stand up front, just see if you can get it. Oh, stand there, limp about wherever you want. But it's so frustrating, because I like Danilo when he was playing. I know there was a lot of missed chances, but he just gave you that bit of pace, that bit of excitement, that running behind, which Dessers doesn't really have. And we know the whole Igamani situation, or to be fair, we don't know the Igamani situation, but I know we'll come on to that. But looking at Danilo purely, he must be wanting on the pitch. Like, he's been out for so long, he's just about got back. Just throw him on. And again, it links back to this Cherney point, that if we see Danilo start on Saturday or get 30-40 minutes, then why is he not getting minutes here when we need him to contribute in games? It's so important. It's just a wasted jersey sitting the bench. It means there's no other option. And don't get me wrong, I don't look at our B team or the youths and think, oh, there's a striker that can come on and affect the game. I think that's one like B team or youth squad area that we're so lacking in, because Lovelace has been out for so long. So I don't necessarily think he's taken someone's spot in that bench. Mm-hmm. But it goes back to that whole point of we weren't prepared for these games. It's as if we were surprised they came around. And it's just been a bit of a nightmare watching Danilo, or not getting to watch Danilo, I should say.
That's it, exactly. From CF4 here makes a fantastic point, and this goes back to what I think about the fullbacks and all that stuff. And then Tav only played an extra 45 minutes more than Danilo the whole pre-season, and has played every minute since the league started. And if you remember, Philippe Clement came on in a press conference, I'm sure I was at this one, where everybody was like, oh, when he said Danilo might be back fit for the Scottish Cup final, which was a good few months ago, and there's been nothing since. Seeing as you talked about Iain, I'll stick with you very briefly on this point here, but Igaman, we spent allegedly £1.2 million on a guy that isn't ready to start. That seems like a shocking decision behind the scenes.
It's utter madness. You look at, like, say you're sitting at scouting meeting for Rangers, and you've got a guy of Igamani's profile who seems to have come in injured, totally unknown, doesn't have the fitness or physicality we've been claimed to be training with the first team, let alone get involved. Surely, with what we need just now, there was a better option there. I mean, Shankland is this obvious one that everyone talks about, and you hear like 3 million, 5 million. If we had some kind of budget there, at least ask that question. Because if Shankland's in this squad, we have a much better start to this season. There's no doubt in my mind that we have an extra few goals and a bit more attacking threat in there. And again, I'm not going to make this a Shankland pod, because he's not the be all and end all. He's not the answer, but it's just a random example that we could have spent that money to get someone in who could contribute right now. I mean, don't get me wrong, Igamani could turn into a world beater when he's back and when he's involved, and might get goals straight off the bat, and we're all thinking, okay, here's this guy now. But in my eyes, it's a bit too late. Like, we needed someone to help Dessers out in the start of this season. No one's been there. with the whole Danilo issue. So all we've seen of Igamani is 2 or 3 training videos when he looks like a big guy, looks quite robust. Couldn't tell he's like kicking a ball. Don't know what he does. Don't know if he's a goal scorer. Don't know if he's a poacher. Don't know if he's a target man. I don't know.
Hopefully all three.
Yeah, it'd be lovely. Yeah, it is. But no, it's just, again, it always comes back to this. It's such poor planning, poor recruitment, you could say at this point. It's just more frustration when we don't really need any more, do we?
And you bring me on to my next point rather nicely there in terms of poor planning. JB, Niels Coppin appointed director of football, or director of recruitment, I should say, in January. Bisgrove left a few months ago now. Does not having a director of football and a CEO impact the team and let decisions like signing guys that can't play football, can't play football, but aren't fit enough to play football yet for the club? Does having these positions, and maybe not so much the CEO, but certainly a DOF, do you think that helps in circumstances like this?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, Coppin, he was brought in to kind of find them that next batch of player, wasn't he? He's been brought in to kind of unearth gems. That's kind of what that's what he's here for. So if you think about the players who went out the door, Barisic, Roof, Jack, Lundstrom, McLaughlin, and then obviously then your loan boys. So there's 5 players that needed replaced, and I don't think the players we've brought in are as good as them 5. I just can't see it. Do you know what I mean? In terms of, I think there's 5 free transfers that would have offered more than them, probably at a decent age. And then obviously then you go, well, you know what? We know we haven't got a lot of money, but surely you bring in players that you go, right, to see he's coming in for him. So obviously Hefty's coming in for Barisic. That one kind of, that covers that off. And then Barron's coming for Jack, because that's like for like. We haven't replaced John Lundstrom for all his faults. I don't think there was a case of there was anyone there that we've gone, you know what, there's another midfield option. We've obviously wrote Cantwell off and Hadji off. So we haven't replaced them. There's 2 I haven't even mentioned. So you're almost just looking at going, the planning just doesn't seem to be there. I think if we'd have had a director of football or a new CEO, would we be taking better corners? Would we have been doing the basics right? Would Tom Lawrence still have started in a number 10? I just don't know. I think we put faith in the manager. He's gone out and signed a new contract. And part of me, at the back of my head, was going, you know what? That's a statement. It's probably a bit of a statement for the squad, and it's a bit of a statement for agents, people who might be pushing the luck and stuff. But I think it was very premature, I think. I've got a feeling Clement has, this is again my opinion, no inside knowledge. I get the feeling that Clement's gone to the board and said, balls to this. You haven't supported me. You haven't given me what I wanted. I'm off. Do you know what I mean? I'll go and get a job in Belgium. No bother. I'll go get a job in Saudi without all this nonsense. I'll see you in a bit. And we've just gone, right, here you go. There's a new deal. That's just going to show our commitment to you. And Clement's just going to go, yeah, sound right. Let me see what I can do with what I've got. It just doesn't seem to be. Someone should put this comment there. Pedro vibes. I've been inundated with texts with Pedro vibes. I think, which I think is harsh, because I do think he has been. I actually genuinely think he's been dealt a rough card. But what he's got to be careful is, I think the Rangers fans will give him sympathy if we can think he's trying different things, as me and Iain have done a few times, to try and get that spark, to try and get things. But if he keeps doing the same thing and it doesn't work, then it's going to be the same groans. It's going to be the same. Dessers is going to continue to be the target. Tavernier is going to continue to be a target. Tom Lawrence will become a target quite quick, a lot quicker. I think people are looking at Lawrence getting away with it because there's probably not a lot of other options that you could probably put in there. But I just feel as if we're at the end, we're coming towards the end of the season, and we're just kind of going, right, let's hobble through to the start of the next season. But I definitely think we need them positions eventually. I just don't think it's not a code red right now. I mean, when the chairman come out and done his speech a few weeks ago, and said, okay, I think the question was asked, where are we with a director of football, or where are we with a new CEO? And he said, the stadium has taken my full priority. And I think that's I think it's a cop out, because at the end of the day, okay, well, how's that working for you? well, yeah, all you've done is you've got on the phone and you've tried to accelerate the boat that's not going to come any quicker. That's all he's had to do. I mean, don't get me wrong, I get there's more to it than that, but I doubt he's spending 10, 12-hour days like a lot of the lads who are probably grafting to make sure they've got enough money to go to the match at the weekend. Do you know what I mean? That they're grafting to make sure that we can actually get to watch this that's being served up. I just get the impression that there's a massive disconnect at the moment throughout the whole club, and that's going right from the top all the way to the fan, and it's petrifying. But
yeah,
come on, let's talk about some future signings so we can talk more positively with a bit of hope.
Four games in, but yeah, listen. In terms of the, I take your point there. I agree with you that they're not full. You know, it's not DEFCON 1 because we don't have a DOF and a CEO in at the minute. But I think in situations, CGM 55 here says, because we all know, it said we wanted Jordan in the midfield. Problem is, it doesn't seem to have played a plan B when he said no thanks. And I don't know if a DOF makes a difference there. But listen,
we wanted Cordoba as well, didn't we? And for me, that struck me as someone that was going to be a big, dominant, bit of a dog centre half who's going to go and win absolutely everything quite quick. And as it turned out, we might have dodged the bullet with him because I think he's been injured all the way through pre-season, hasn't kicked the ball for Norwich. But then we go and sign Proper, who's a complete opposite to that type of profile. I don't think Enciala was ever that type of player. I don't think anyone thought that he was ever going to be ready. But it just, and again, to your point, we identified that was the six that we needed. That was the style. And surely we've gone, right, if we don't get him on loan, we're going to go and get him on loan. Or we're going to go and get it. It just feels like there's just again, keep using the phrase disconnect. Which is worrying, but yeah.
No, that's it exactly. It just seems like each department isn't speaking to each other. It's like a blinking NHS hospital where nobody's actually talking to each other. But look, Iain, in the manager in this press conference, he talked about, you know, the rebuild yet again, and you know, obviously not getting the money from the end of this. He says, "Look, I told you guys this last week. If you go to Champions League, you can do things faster because there's 40 million coming into the club. I know that's not the case, so it'll take more time. That's the reality, to do the things you want to do or the things that a club wants to do for the future. But it doesn't mean that the story stops. Also, of course, you see it already with the new young and exciting players coming into the club, making steps. And I don't need to say every name every time, but it's to make value for the future and to take the next steps. We've lost out on £4.2 million, I think it is. I think it's €5 million, 4.2 million quid. How is that going to affect our signing strategy for the next? Because it's not an insignificant number, that.
No, it's very similar to what I think Sima would have cost us. And I've been a big Sima fan, and I've been campaigning for him for months. So, I think, and what I'm not defending the board here, so please nobody think that's what this comment is. But I think our recruitment is essentially paused over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and the thinking has been, right, this is the Champions League signings, this is the Europa League signings, and it's just been a case of, well, let's just pause where we are, go out with what we've got, and hopefully get through. And then we'll make the signings we need to. Because we've seen with the Goldson out, Proper in, and the Lammers out, new signings came in straight off the bat, straight away. So there obviously is players X, Y, Z, not lined up to join, but there's certainly targets sitting there. Jordan's the one that makes no sense because he was like the prime target, lost out. There is no plan B, as CGM mentioned a minute ago. But I think at this point now, we need to see movement. Like, we know our budgets, we know where we're playing. I was going to say we know where we're playing, we probably don't, but we know what competitions we're playing in. So we know how much we're going to get from these runs. It's 8 Europa games. It's not great, but it is still financial funds going to come in. So if it is a case of now we see the movements, and don't get me wrong, I do think we still need to see the exits, and that probably links back to the whole director of football thing, because I don't see Kloppen. I don't see Nils Kloppen's job being to negotiate sales. For whatever reason, it might be. Like, I don't really know the ins and outs at that level, obviously, but it just seems like there's no one doing that part. Like the Hagi, Cantwell, Davies, Matondo, we've said the list a million times. There's so much deadwood in this squad that we want to move on, and you can't force a player out, but there's got to be a club that's wanting some of these players. Like, some of them. Like, they're not terrible footballers. They've just not worked here. That's fine. That can happen. There's got to be Galatasaray or Fenerbahce. Trabzonspor, give them a phone, see what they want now. But these guys are decent footballers. Just there's got to be a way to sell them on and then get those wages freed up, get some fees in, get some movement. Because, again, we want to see a bit of freshness in a starting 11 with like youths and stuff like that coming in. We need signings to come in. There's no two ways about it. So at this point, we know our budget. We know how much we have to play with. Start doing stuff. It's so basic, but start doing stuff. It's been too quiet for too long. Yeah. The rumour mill has proper dried up. Like there's nothing these days, which is my real concern here. It's not as if, as a club, we tend to have no rumour and then the players holding a scarf the next day. It's always drawn out. You look at Ramani this summer. You look at the Jordan stuff. Hannibal, it's been another one. What's going on? Why they haven't moved to other clubs? So are we still involved, or are we just delaying stuff? Like it's a bit of a joke at this point. And as a fan base, we need something to cling on to, just a little bit of hope to keep us coming through the door.
Yeah, totally agree to it. That's it. We just need something to cling on to. I mean, look at the reaction to people. I mean, Cherney's come in. He's the most half decent looking winger in so long, and we're going, he should have started last night. So I totally agree. They just need something to cling on to. Stevie Scotty 19 here says you'll see movement in the Mundo now. They're obviously budgeted for Champions League, and Plan B is the budget for the Europa League. So hopefully we do see something. Look, just before we wrap it up, I'm going to come back to that statement that Rangers released about 30 minutes ago. Always exciting when Rangers release a statement. This one is actually on the calmer end of the scale here, but JB, I'll just get your immediate reaction to this. It just says Rangers today was informed that Celtic will make no allocation for away fans for the September Old Firm game. The allocation to be implemented by both clubs was clear, and Rangers was taking all steps towards fulfilling that agreement. Obviously, it's to do with the stadium. In the meantime, we can confirm that no away allocation will apply for the January Old Firm fixture at Ibrox. This is consistent with the reciprocity embedded in the agreement reached between the clubs and the SPFL, and I'm delighted that I got that word right. JB, what's your immediate reaction to that? Just more of the same, or?
Yeah, I mean, you'll never hear me ever say this again. You can't blame Celtic. Do you know what I mean? As much as that's how bad it is. They turn around and it's just another thing that we've mismanaged. Do you know what I mean? There was conversations today, and it's New Edmonton House is going to be sitting empty on match day. How much revenue is that losing? We're building bars where the old shop used to be, and that's going to be shut. We're not going to be back on the ground to be able to use that, even if we do get the licenses. It's just another thing to add to the list where we weren't ready. And how long is this going to go on for? We weren't ready. We didn't see that coming. We didn't plan for that. We didn't know that was going to happen. We didn't know this. Everything is just, it's just one thing after another. I think there was the memes going around, isn't it? Like one day since the last Rangers disaster or whatever. So yeah, I just think it's just another kick in the nuts for the fans that work themselves into the ground for the club. There'll be people there there'll be really people there hard.
Oh, so excited about that, or not excited about the news, but just reacting to it so much that he's shaking himself off the stream. JB, do you want to just pick up where you left off there?
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened there. Yeah, I think it's probably my head shaking, probably switched the camera. Yeah, I was just saying there in terms of there's fans there that would have been that have travelled to all the pre-season games. Do you know what I mean? It was a training ground in Amsterdam. Do you know what I mean? People had to fly into Amsterdam and get 3-hour bus journeys up to the ground. There's people travelling to Poland. Do you know what I mean? There's people travelling all over the world to support the club. And this is another barrier that they put up to make sure that we haven't got fans at their place. Now, unless things take a dramatic turn, which they can, let's be honest, we're fickle as hell. Do you know what I mean? I think I remember waking up the day after the Kyiv game last week and going, right, this is it. We've started. Do you know what I mean? That was because of a 90 odd minute equaliser. going there with 8,000 fans or whatever it would have been, I think would have been at least something for the players to kind of clutch onto. I think now it's just going to be another in a long line of excuses of because they're going to run over us on the 1st of September unless we do something drastic, unless we come up with a formula and a confidence within the group that might have to come from external signings. But they're going to run over us, as we've seen a few times. But again, they aren't great. Let's not forget that. They're high on confidence, and the team in Scotland that's got the most confidence is the team that goes on to win things. And we need to get that confidence back quickly. But yeah, just another kick in the balls for the fans, I think, in terms of no tickets for that one.
Yeah, look, as I said at the start of the podcast, this has been a very sobering start to the season. I suppose this just with the away allocation just compiles it even more. And yeah, it'd be nice to see away fans in whatever capacity it is, especially helping the team out at the other side of the city. But listen, I think that just wraps up. I don't know how you two have felt about tonight, but I feel that this has been quite cathartic. Maybe feeling a bit better after.
I think we should start our pods with my name's Jamie. I'm a Rangers fan, and then we just go round.
I know, man. I'm getting stickers for our name badges and everything all printed off for next week. But listen, JB, thanks very much for joining us tonight, and yeah, letting us know what you think about that.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I can see you don't mean that behind your eyes. And Iain, thanks very much for your contribution tonight as well, man.
Good therapy session as always, guys. Can't wait for the next one.
I know. That's it. Listen, thanks everybody for tuning in. Take care. We'll be back at the weekend. That'll be Craig and myself. We will be giving you the reaction to the St Johnstone game. Who knows what team we'll see? I have not got a clue. But if you like the content tonight, if you could give us a wee hand, just give us a like, share, subscribe, and if you catch podcasts on audio platforms, we're also on YouTube and Spotify as well. But take care, everybody, and we'll see you all again on Saturday.